In the remote town of Black Hollow, a place whispered about in hushed tones, stood an abandoned manor known as Ravenswood House. Locals spoke of strange whispers in the wind, shadows that moved on their own, and a tragic history buried under decades of silence. When investigative journalist Daniel Reeves arrived to uncover the truth, he found himself entangled in something far more sinister than he had ever imagined. The echoes of the forgotten called to him, pulling him into a nightmare that defied reality. Daniel had always been drawn to the unexplained, seeking out haunted locations and eerie urban legends in his relentless pursuit of the truth. Black Hollow was his latest stop, a town shrouded in mystery where no one dared to speak about the horrors lurking within Ravenswood House. But Daniel was not one to be deterred by fear. Armed with his camera, recorder, and unwavering determination, he set out to document what lay hidden within the decaying walls of the manor. Little did he know, some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. Daniel Reeves had spent years chasing urban legends, but Ravenswood House was different. The stories surrounding it were not just rumors, they were warnings. Despite the townsfolk's reluctance to speak about the manor, he managed to gather enough information to pique his curiosity. The previous owners, the Holloway family, had vanished mysteriously a century ago. As Daniel checked into the only inn in town, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. His journey into darkness had begun. The innkeeper, an elderly woman with deep-set eyes, eyed him warily as he signed the guest register. "You best stay away from that house, Mr. Reeves," she warned. "Many have gone there, but none have come back the same." Daniel offered a reassuring smile, dismissing her concerns as superstition. "I've been to plenty of haunted places before. I know what I'm doing." The woman shook her head. "This place is different. The house doesn't just haunt, it devours." Determined to document his findings, Daniel ventured into Ravenswood House as the sun dipped below the horizon. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of decay. He set up his recording equipment and flashlight, but the deeper he moved into the house, the more unsettling it became. The silence was oppressive, interrupted only by the occasional creak of wood. Then he heard it, a whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "Help us." The voice sent chills down his spine. His camera captured fleeting glimpses of movement, shadows that darted past doorways, figures shifting in the periphery of his vision. He tried to rationalize it, attributing it to the wind or tricks of the light. But when his recorder played back the whisper, he knew something was terribly wrong. The voice was layered, as if multiple spirits were speaking at once. Determined to understand the manor's history, Daniel visited the town's archives the next morning. He uncovered a disturbing truth. The Holloway family had dabbled in dark rituals, attempting to communicate with the dead. A seance gone wrong had led to their disappearance, and ever since, strange occurrences plagued Ravenswood House. The more he read, the more he realized he wasn't dealing with mere ghosts. Something ancient and malevolent lurked within the walls. He found a faded photograph of the Holloways, their faces blurred as if time itself had tried to erase them. The notes described unexplained deaths, disappearances, and reports of people hearing voices calling their names from empty rooms. Daniel's excitement turned to unease. This was no ordinary haunting. Returning to the manor, Daniel discovered that his belongings had been disturbed. His journal, which he had left closed, was now open, with words scrawled across the page. "You shouldn't be here." Panic gripped him, but he refused to leave. That night, he set up cameras in hopes of capturing proof of the supernatural. What he recorded was beyond comprehension. Figures shifting in the darkness, eyes gleaming from the corners, and an eerie lullaby playing from nowhere. He played back the footage in horror. A shadowy figure loomed behind him in one frame, only to disappear in the next. It wasn't an illusion. Something was in the house with him. As Daniel dug deeper, he experienced vivid nightmares, visions of the Holloway family's final moments. He saw them performing a forbidden ritual, their screams echoing as shadows consumed them. Each night, the whispers grew louder, the apparitions more aggressive. The house was no longer just haunted. It was alive, feeding on his fear. When he tried to leave, the doors slammed shut, trapping him inside. Desperation set in. He pounded against the doors, but the house responded with mocking laughter. He was at its mercy now. Desperate for answers, Daniel discovered a hidden passage beneath the house, leading to a chamber filled with symbols of protection. In the center lay an old, dust-covered book detailing the Holloway's fate. They had summoned an entity known as the Forgotten, a vengeful force feeding on souls to exist. The only way to break its hold was to finish what the Holloways had started. A ritual that could either banish the entity or doom him to join them. The walls around him whispered, names of the lost murmuring from the darkness. Save us, or join us. Armed with the book, Daniel prepared to perform the ritual. The house fought back, windows shattered, walls bled, and the whispers turned to screams. Shadows clawed at him, trying to pull him into their abyss. With trembling hands, he recited the incantation, feeling the air grow colder. The entity manifested, a grotesque, shifting form with hollow eyes and an endless gaping mouth. "You cannot undo what has been done," it rasped. Daniel stood his ground as the entity lunged at him. The symbols in the chamber glowed, repelling its advance. He realized the only way to weaken it was to acknowledge the forgotten souls trapped within. He spoke their names, calling them back to the light. The room trembled, and spectral figures emerged from the darkness. The entity screamed as the souls it had consumed over the centuries began to break free. As the ritual reached its climax, Daniel felt an overwhelming pull. The Forgotten was trying to take him as its final offering. He had two choices: sacrifice himself to ensure the entity was sealed forever, or flee, leaving the cycle to continue. With a deep breath, he made his decision, chanting the final words. A blinding light engulfed the room, and the entity let out one last, agonizing wail before collapsing into nothingness. When Daniel awoke, he was outside the manor, the sun rising over Black Hollow. The house stood silent, its oppressive presence gone. The townsfolk, sensing the shift, no longer looked at him with fear, but with quiet gratitude. He had ended the nightmare, but at a cost. His memories of the ordeal were fading, as if the house itself had erased its horrors from his mind. Some horrors are never truly gone, they merely wait for the next soul foolish enough to listen.